Spreading, loving, dropping, creating more good and living, thinking, healing, loving, doing, writing while black.
Welcome to another episode of Writing While Black. I am your co-host Ayoka B with Angela, of course.
Peace.
Today, okay, I'm gonna rewind a few months before we were starting season 2. I just finished reading One of Our Kind by Nicola Yoon, and I needed to talk to somebody.
Okay, but hold
I
on
needed to talk to
before you
somebody.
talk about that. You're gonna have to hold off because what's new and good? What's going on with your writer's life? Let's talk about the podcast
Lord have
so people
mercy.
can watch. The people might want to
Okay.
see.
All right. I appreciate that. There's an episode on Get Caught Up Author Podcast where I'm being interviewed by the lovely co-hosts,
Chris and
Christy,
Chris. Oh,
Christy and Crystal. um, it's an author interview. We talk about how I got into writing process, inspiration, and then we get into the novel, Love at Second Sight. That episode posted Wednesday night and it's available everywhere you can get podcasts. We got into a lot of things, so check it out, please, please. Especially DC people. Me and Crystal had a whole little tangent on DC men, so you might want to get. I did that earlier this week. I have another podcast coming up, a DC based one, hosted by the facilitator of my memoir writing class, Chris Stevenson. He interviews authors but has a focus on DC authors. I'll be on that in 2 weeks.
I think since the last time we talked, you had your self-love event, right?
Yes, we had a self-love event at Mi Otra Casa Boutique Hotel. It was about 12 women. It was inspired by the underlying theme in Love at Second Sight. The FMC Shane. She's on a journey. This is her life's journey, and a lot of self-love comes up for her. That's what inspired that event. It was lovely, and my favorite part was I asked the women to write a love note to their teenage self. Then we put them in a basket, and I had everyone pick one and read one aloud. So you didn't read your own. It hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. It was very, very beautiful. I called the event a check-in for ourselves and for each other. And I think we're going to do something like that once a quarter. Just a self-love check-in.
It's good.
Yeah.
So the next one is in September, a month after Afro Descendants Month. That's when you're going to have your event, isn't it?
Yes, that's the book signing.
All right. Speaking of letters, I am currently reading The Neighbor Favor, which I had put myself on the list to get on Libby. When it came up, I had to take it because it came up. And I went in my Kindle the other day and saw that I already had it. It's been something I've been wanting to read for a long time. I don't know when I put it in my Kindle. I'm listening to it on Libby. And I really loved one montage of letters. And I really love letters. That type of conversation, whether it's with yourself or with other people, is at a different pace. There's a different deliberateness to those types of communications. So I can see where that would be beautiful, having the love letter to yourself thing. Also still listening to Miseducation of the Negro. At the Black Writers Group last week, I wrote a little bit on Love Soiree. In the opening of Love Soiree, I have a quote from the Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And that's one of the issues as I was writing and developing the story, our education as black folks. There were a couple things that I had wanted to delve into a little bit more in the story, so I started delving. That's something. We're excited about that. Look, I'm so excited. My clothes is falling apart.
I'm glad you're working on it, because last time we talked, you were a little overwhelmed by the enormity of editing a full work like that. So.
Yeah, I still am, because I talk about it or not, almost every week at the Black Writers Group, I'm writing something on it. But it's 15-minute writing sprints. So I have all of this stuff at the beginning of the manuscript sections, like explore the chemistry more. So I have to go through the whole book and figure out where I can explore the and that feels like a lot to me. And it's like 20 different little notes, and I'm like, woo! But whatever, it's the process. So I'm just doing my best, step by step. That's what we got. On Our Freedom, I did some promotion work for whatever that's worth. I always feel like, I should have been promoting a long time ago, but what you gonna do?
Oh, wow. Okay. You sent me the graphic, so I'm gonna post it on IG. Last minute action.
You never know. I actually already have my hands full because I want to get it out August, Afro Descendants Month. Like the first one, our target was Afro Descendants Month. We've kind of come back a year. This is number 3.
Do you not want me to promote it? Or?
Yeah, promote it.
Okay.
No, I want to promote it. There's something touching to the different submissions that come in, so many different perspectives. I want people who want to submit to be able to submit. So, okay, back to, you finished reading Nicola Yoon's One of Our Kind a couple months ago, and you needed to talk.
I did. I had so much in me, and questions and comments and commentary and venting, but I couldn't find anybody to talk to about it. So I was like, so I called you, and I was like, Angela, listen, I need you to read this book because I need somebody to talk to about it. I reached out to a few people, they hadn't read it, and then one person told me they purposely hadn't read it because they heard it was anti-Black, and I was just like, oh, jeez. Yes, so here we are, fast forward a few months.
You read it, or I listened to it.
I listened to it too.
Oh, did you? Oh,
I did.
Okay.
Which, when I was trying to go back, was part of the issue because I don't have any of my highlights. You
Right,
know, because
right.
I listened to it. But I love that narrator, and so I wanted to listen to it. Plus, I'm still not immersed in the audiobook world, and I said I was going to start listening to more audiobooks.
So you knew the narrator.
Yes, I heard her narrate at least one, maybe 2 other books.
What's the narrator's name?
Nicole Lewis, and I like her. When I saw she was the narrator, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to it. I'll listen to it. I know
Now,
you said you didn't like the kids' voice.
just gonna say, let's start off then. Let's just go into what we don't like. Yeah, I said I didn't like the kids' voices, but I kind of feel like there were a lot of different voices. The kids didn't do it for me. We're in the spoiler-free part. Overall, what did you like? What didn't you like? From what you can recall.
No, I can remember a lot of it. It's just that I like to look at quotes and things like that I highlighted, and I can't do that. So that's probably another reason why the audiobook thing is problematic for me. But Nicola Yoon's writing is beautiful. She is a very, very great writer. So for me, that that probably, it didn't make up for nothing, but it made me finish it. The writing made me finish it.
She's a good writer, and
Strong.
so much of it was kind of mundane, but from the beginning she had me with her writing, even when wasn't much going on.
Because it was just the regular lives of this couple, of this family, until we got into the guts of it.
Have you read any of Nicola Yoon's books before?
No, and
Okay.
this is her debut
Adult.
for adult. Yeah.
Mhm.
She's a YA author, or prior to that, she had done YA, and I had heard of her, but I hadn't read any of her stuff. Everything, and
And is also a star.
Yeah.
You know, Giselle reached out to me and said, "Oh, there's this Jamaican author, and she's on Netflix." And so I had heard of her, but I hadn't read any of her work. This is my first of her work.
right, because some of her work has been made and adapted to film, right?
So I think that there's something going on Netflix.
Anywho, that's one of the overall things I can say. I really enjoyed the writing. Now, some of the character development from Jasmine became problematic for me. However, I think that was intentional
The satire.
to set up like this oxymoron within her, and not just her, but other characters as well. I think
Yeah,
that was intentional
we might
because
have to talk about that more
okay,
later in the
right,
spoiler
right,
part.
right. But I think it's important. Not I think I know it's important to note that this is a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
That's the genre, thriller. So a thriller is written a certain way, and there's certain expectations that get fulfilled in a thriller.
We need to talk about that because I did not find it thrilling. I found it suspenseful because I was like, well, what's going on? But the thrill aspect, the most, there were two scenes that were exciting. One was the precipitating thing for them moving, and then at the very end. So I don't understand the thrill aspect. I understand some part of the horror aspect. I heard it was a horror piece. So I kept being nervous about listening to it before I went to bed because I didn't know what was going to happen horror wise. But I didn't get the thrill thing, but we can talk about that later. And I read that it was a satire. Afterwards, I looked up the word satire because I'm like, well, maybe I don't know what satire is. So I looked it up because I'm like, I don't really understand the satire
Well,
aspect either.
well, thriller, it says, a genre of fiction with numerous, often overlapping subgenres, including crime, horror, and detective fiction. Thrillers are characterized and defined by the moods they elicit, giving their audiences heightened feelings of suspense, excitement, surprise, anticipation, and anxiety.
I had anticipation for
And
sure.
then they say twisted personalities, mind games, anticipation, raises questions, lack of truth from characters, high emotions, unanticipated, no, unexpected event, mystery. So yeah, this fits that definition. Definitely. It wouldn't be a horror because a horror is blood and gore.
It was horrible because of the conclusion.
I'm just saying we're talking writing, and so the definition of the genres, a thriller isn't thrilling. A thriller is, you know, and horror is, when
This is a
they
little bit of an
what
aside, Ayoka, but the story comes first and then they try to put it into a box or a genre. Now, some people do try to write to the box of genre, but a lot of people are just telling stories, and then corporations are like, well, what box can we put this story in? What
I,
type of music is
I
this?
I agree. I agree with that. I'm saying specifically for this book,
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to write a thriller. That was
Mm-hmm.
her goal because she said that she was in a place of um, absolute despair and anger when she wrote it. So yeah,
So so you said you like the writing,
I love Nicole Lewis's narration.
you love the
That's
narration,
that's outside of the book itself, though.
but
Uh,
still it's part of the
it
experience
is. It is. She does characters well. I could see the characters. I
from the
could.
narration,
No, I
from the
mean the
writing.
writing. I'm saying that the author writes characters well. Her character development is very good. The main character, Jasmine, I was feeling her and I was rocking with her until I wasn't. I got to a point where I was like, hey, wait a minute. Let me go back about 30 seconds. I need to hear that again because things started to not make sense to me.
There was a point in the story when I really felt like I understood Jasmine. It could be somebody that I knew. Jasmine's internal world was solidly developed in her perspective on things. Even when I didn't agree with her choices or what she did, she still seemed like a real person. But then at some point I wasn't sure how I felt about not the character, like as a person, like do I like her or not, but in terms of the character development, I got a little like, wait a second, I wasn't really sure. I'm like, it was this a good character development or not? So I
Right. I had those questions too. And
okay.
this is why I wanted to talk. I needed somebody to talk about it.
Okay, is there anything else before we jump into
So we
the
got to
core
dive
of it,
in.
the crux? Yeah, I was really disappointed. I got really pissed off, and from the perspective of someone who is passionate about supporting black writers, part of the reason I'm passionate about supporting black writers is because it's so important for us to control our narrative and the narrative of our people, and to tell stories and create art and do things that support us and encourage us and uplift us. My husband likes a movie where the earth is going to end and then everybody rallies around, and then at the end of the movie the earth still ends, the world comes to an end. I don't particularly like those types of stories. I want to have some victory in the end. I feel like life is already depressing enough. I don't want to read or watch or spend hours investing in something that is not. So I got really angry from that perspective. Like the choices that the stories that we choose to tell or what we choose to create as writers, of course, is very personal, and everybody is entitled to do what they want to do. But I have an opinion about it, and I had some strong thoughts about it. Let's jump in.
Okay.
Before we go into that, would you recommend that people read it?
Recommend it because art is supposed to make you think, it's supposed to make you feel, and it's supposed to promote discussions, debates, yelling, whatever it is. It's supposed to do that. And she definitely did that. She anticipated, she wanted people to have an intense reaction to it. And she wanted people to, when they got to the end, be like, what the fuck? She wanted that. So it wasn't like it wasn't something that she didn't anticipate. She also said she knew that she was going to be misunderstood by some people for writing this. That's why I was pushing on the genre front. It feels like she determined the genre on the front end. This is a thriller. What I wrote is a thriller. The horrific ending, I was so disgusted. Knowing it was a thriller, that made sense. That was like the scariest shit ever. I still have very strong and mixed feelings about everything. I mean, okay, we said we're going to get into it. Okay, so
From a writing perspective, it's very well written. I don't know if I could not recommend it because of politics, but then I feel like everything is political. So I probably couldn't recommend it because of politics, but I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings about it. And I agree that I think that can make you mad. I think it can frustrate you. I think it can do all of those things, and I think it's viable for an artist to do what they do. This is the type of artwork that I'm not in favor of, so I probably wouldn't recommend it because of that, not because I think that the quality is poor.
okay.
Okay,
Um, so she's a black author, and this was at a time, just for some context, after George Floyd's murder, then the quote starts. There was a lot of despair. There was a lot of anger. Those things just smashed together in my head. This book was written from a profound moment of despair. Okay, so I can go back to that time for me. And I remember it was all of that. It was that we were in quarantine. I was still in a 9 to 5 job, which I was I mean, I'm not going to go into it, but with many black women who are in corporate America or whatever, and this wasn't even corporate America. This was a quasi-governmental agency, but the feelings that I was feeling at work. The only reason I was still working there is because we were on quarantine and I didn't have to literally go into the office and see certain faces, or I would have quit before then. But I was I was so glad that I already had a therapist before the pandemic started, or else I mean I already was in a very bad place, a place that I had not been before mentally. And our move was delayed because Costa Rica's border was closed. I felt utterly trapped and just like I don't know what to do. So I know despair and having all these feelings and it being an unprecedented time. I can see where your mind is messed up. So to learn that this work was birthed out of that even made more sense to me. Now, I still had problems with the story and definitely the end.
I hadn't thought about the George Floyd angle at all. I remember the George Floyd knee on the neck was in a cluster. There was a heightened amount of things going on before and after that were distressing. I was living in a community, and I grew up in Detroit, which is a black community. I went to school in Harlem, PWI, but I was in Harlem, and I would make it a point to get into black communities in New York. I was involved with black student organizations. I lived in Mississippi. So when that was going on, when the border shut down, I was living in a white community. Around that time, I would have benefited from a therapist. I started getting really paranoid about white men. If I stopped at a stoplight, maybe this one has 20 million guns in his car and he's going to start shooting if I look at him or don't look at him. In the grocery store, I just felt like I was surrounded by maniacs with caches of guns and all in the process of planning mass shootings and mass murders that could start at any moment. I was really stressed being surrounded by white people and not really knowing black people or feeling like I had anybody who had my back. We were supposed to move in July and the borders closed in March. My anxiety went really high, and that's when I did yoga teacher training. That was my therapy, yoga teacher training. I remember her saying that she wrote the book quickly. It was a really quick turnaround. So I guess the impetus and the angst and the anger and all of that pushed her.
So having all those feelings and feeling all those things, what comes out? For her, this is what came out. That's my long answer to, I would recommend it. I would put a caveat on it. Be prepared, because you're going to be bad. But, but in some people, that'll make them read it. And some people be like, oh, nah, I'm mad enough. I'm not. That's all right. But strong feeling after I read it, and when I was going to write a review, I stumbled on something where someone said that it was anti-black and was like, don't read this, and gave it like 1 star. And this is Ayoka's opinion, obviously. That word anti-black, for a black person to call another black person or another black person's work anti-black, I had a very visceral reaction to that. And I want people to be very careful when throwing that word around. We're talking about our own people, because I think it becomes overused and people throw it around when that's not a word that should be used lightly. I say that not knowing the person who wrote that, but I also do not know this author personally. I'm just saying, I don't know that I would ever use that word, but if I did, I'm saying some strong shit if I call somebody anti-black.
Can I say something about anti-black before we move on?
Yeah.
I'm probably the opposite of you then, because I call myself anti-black. I grew up in a worldwide system of white supremacy, and the corollary of that is anti-blackness. And so, from the cradle, from before birth to right now, it's a constant stream of anti-blackness coming at all of us. And in every system that you're in, there's anti-blackness coming at us, me included. Even when you do a lot of work to remove and to like let go of certain things that do not serve you, it's virtually impossible for even, not like I'm like some high of the, I'm not the blacker than thou, but even for the blacker than thou to avoid anti-blackness. So I actually use it pretty casually, or I don't know if casually, but I feel like everybody is anti-black, including those of us who maybe think we're not anti-black.
Okay. Well, our definitions are different. So that's why I said I don't know the person who wrote it. Maybe her definition is like yours. I honestly did not read through her review because when I saw that, but she was telling people not to read this black author's work, which I have an issue with too, because when you have a very large following, there were people that were commenting saying, "Oh, say no more, I'll never read it." And that made me feel away. But okay, we getting off. We supposed to be talking about the actual book. So you wanted me to come back to something I said earlier about the character development and the oxymorons within the character and that sort of thing. I was saying that I was rocking with Jasmine, the main character, until I wasn't. I can't remember all of the details, but she started to get on my nerves. She's a public defender, really, really passionate about her work. So I was rocking with her with that. She loved black people and loved her people and loved her community and wanted to make a difference in all of the things. I was rocking with her on that. She would watch all of the videos and stuff of black people being killed. That's something I've never done and will never do. I've never watched any of those videos because I don't want to see that. I don't want that in my brain. But I know that there are people who feel like they have to bear witness. And I just don't do that. That's not a judgment, but for my mental health, that's not what I'm going to do. I know that that will do something to me. I don't want to see that. It's enough for me to know that it happened. She would watch all of the things. I wrote that that was problematic for me. That's not something I would do for my well-being. You can be an advocate and be vigilant without doing that. She was very adamant about people, watching these videos and things. And although she was passionate about her work, I wanted to see her lean into joy more, in her life. Whether it was with her son or husband, I just wanted her to embrace some joy and laughter and those sorts of things. And she did that some with her friends when she would spend time with her friends, but then she would go off on a tangent talking about the latest video or whatever, and her friends were like, "Jasmine, relax." And then she's pregnant. And see, and that's something I feel like you passing that on to your child. You need to relax. Also, she had some really rigid ideas about blackness and what's acceptable and appropriate. She was really fixated about hair and how you shouldn't wear it. And I'm like, let people live. I mean, to a certain extent, I get it, but I'm not talking about the people when we got to Liberty and they was becoming black Stepford wives or whatever. I'm talking about how someone chooses to wear their hair. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to work through, okay? That doesn't mean that you need to question they black card or question their commitment because they don't have dreads or they don't have an afro or whatever. And so, yeah, but it was very realistic. because we do that to each other. So that's something I felt would promote discussion. I mean,
Reading, learning, driving, creating, more good and living, thinking, healing, loving, living, doing right and wrong, black, black, black.